radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us today. Today is September 30th, 2016. It's Friday, and it is Call-In Friday. And as many of you know, I've often had Dana Durnford on the radio with me co-hosting. And Dana is here with us today. Thanks for joining us, Dana.
Yes, pleasure to be here for sure.
Well, it's really awesome to have you with us. First, for those of you who know Dana Durnford, he's been engaged in a legal battle. The nuclear industry basically targeted him, but for his work to verify that Fukushima has really indeed hurt our oceans. But we really don't want to discuss any of that case. He's still going through legal ramblings. He's not in jail, so that's the good part. So
yeah.
we want to keep him out of jail, so we're not going to discuss any of that today because we want him to win his case. So how about that?
Yeah, and I got 3 gag orders, so.
Yeah, so let's just don't touch on any of that. There's plenty of it to talk about. So Dana can only stay with us for a little while today because he is indeed headed off to take care of some of this business. So we are going to have him only for about a half hour. One of the things that I asked Dana about right before the show was these abandoned uranium mines, to be honest, that to be honest, this whole thing of unpeeling this onion has really made me understand my own complete dumbassery. Like, when I saw the Native Americans in Washington, D.C. last December do their protest about the uranium on their lands and the harm it's causing, I, in my heart of hearts, Dana, honestly believe they were talking about the uranium tailings that our government has been burying on their lands with their knowledge. But as it turns out, what I discovered in the last 2 weeks is that the uranium tailings are tracked, traced, they know where they're at, they're counted, and yes, they're on native lands. But the other big elephant in the room is what the EPA calls an estimated 15,000 abandoned uranium mines that are left open on the native soils. Not just the Sioux Nation, but every native tribe has them. They say an estimated 15,000. So in my view, and I wanted Dana to confirm this, and I kind of blew away because he does know about this. I asked him about it. I thought, well, gosh, if we take the 90% rule, that means there's probably about 200,000 abandoned uranium mines. So, Dana, share with the audience what you know about this. I fell off my chair.
Well, there's 500,000 in America, abandoned mines, uranium mines, and their tailing ponds. And you got to realize for most people, uranium, say India doesn't have very much uranium, so they're looking at thorium. And thorium, none of this is good. thorium will produce fissionable products when it's put through a process, and what molten salt, what they call molten salt reactors. And so they have even more problems, and it's just a pipe dream. But Canada has a lot of uranium. Australia has a lot of uranium. Kazakhstan has a lot of uranium. Russia and also America. But the rest of the planet is not so much. And uranium, once it goes through the process, as it's going through the process, rather, it's something like 400 train car loads of iron ore. And then they break that down with chemicals, very harsh chemicals, and that's put in tailing ponds. And out of all of that, when you finally come down to it, they got a gram of fissionable product. And you need the fissionable product for the chain reaction to work. So the uranium on its own doesn't work. And so there's 500,000 of these environmental, just one of these is an environmental nightmare, let alone 500,000. Now, in context of all of that, you want to think about how many missile silos are throughout your country, because they're leaching radioactive material into the environment. You also have to look at the landfills throughout the country, these 50s and 60s, 70s, and even 80s. They were burying it without telling people. Then you have repositories right across your country hemorrhaging into your community. And then you have nuclear power plants hemorrhaging into your community. Then you have these, the military's using depleted uranium munitions and testing in your country. And then you have all the other countries that are doing it too. But when you added it all up, what you ended up with was a polluted country. You have to also look at the bomb testing in the 50s and 60s and 70s and how much carnage that actually done to your country. The best way to think about bomb testing is if Russia attacked you. It's no different, except it didn't hit your city, but you still had the fallout. And the fallout from each bomb testing, say in America, with the right winds, was within a few days felt and recorded in many different countries on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, for instance, where the prevailing winds will easily move it. But it doesn't need the jet stream to move across. But back to the 15,000 abandoned mines on the Navajo Nation, that could be described only as a genocide. That is absolutely on purpose. And these people are and have always been targeted, but they're targeted in a way where it's such a difficult subject. Most people can't blame them. Don't want to look at the subject. It's just enormously difficult to try to get a foothold and understand any kind of aspect or facet or any of the minutiae of the industry. So that's why me and Lonnie and many other people exist. Is we slowly go down that road and methodically start building an actual true depiction of what we're talking about. And then we come to the terms with it like you did, Lonnie, where it was a shock to you to find out that there was 15,000, a bigger shock this morning to find out that throughout America there's roughly 500,000 spots where they've been dumping this stuff. That's not counting the ocean. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Exactly. Well, just knowing that Dr. Goffman studied this and said that, I mean, his scientific study proved that the government, the IAEA, U.S. military, the nuclear industry really does underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90%. So just knowing that tells us that these 15,000 estimated is it's probably 10%. So there's at least in that area 150 to 200. And this is the other thing I discovered. These uranium mines were licensed in the United States as just ordinary mines. So when the producers basically finished that mine, they were allowed to just leave them open and abandon them completely open without sealing them back up, without taking protective measures. And it really is a genocide. I mean,
so when they say it's clean, green, and too cheap to meter, they're not going to talk about that kind of stuff, obviously. They're not including that in the conversation. They're not including that in the estimations or the total sum of, of the industry itself. Anything like that is immediately excluded from the conversation. So that's why we hear that rhetoric, it's clean, green, too cheap to meter, carbon free. How is 15,000? Right. And so 15,000 mines, how many vehicles, how much gas and diesel and everything else had to go into that in order to just get them up and running. So there's this whole industry long before it makes it to the nuclear reactor itself. But once at the nuclear reactor, it's still not clean, still not green, and it's still not carbon free. It's boiling about 1 million gallons a minute per reactor. That's evaporated into the environment. And then at the same time, the storage ponds on the site full of reactor rods. And they use the ponds because the water that they're using is special water and absorbs the radioactive isotopes. It absorbs the neutron bombardments and the gamma shines and everything else that goes with that. But that is also boiled off every day. Each pool is boiling off about 120,000 liters per day if it's got, unless it's a brand new pool or something, right? Then, as you fill it up. Now, they store the stuff in the pool for a decade at a time. And as it's coming out of the reactor, they store more in the pool and more at the tops, every 18 months, they have to take the fuel out. Now, a lot of them are only 1 year, and they have to stay in that pool for 10 years. Japan's reactors had 5 reactors at the top of each building, at the very top of each building, and then a reactor core itself. And at least 4 of those buildings we know for sure had lost those inventories. That's 24 reactors. And so that's why I done.
Each one of those sites, excuse me, and you're talking about Fukushima Daiichi. On top of each of those buildings that we see there,
I jumped topics. That's fine. Yeah. So on the top of each of the reactor buildings that melted down in Japan, they never. But we have 5,000 pictures of the reactors, and so we have talked about this, as you know, Lonnie, over and over and over. And I show the documentation
6
as
years,
I'm talking.
Dana. It's almost 6 years. That's how long we've been talking about it.
Yeah, no kidding. It's frightening. Now we see the death of the Pacific Ocean. That's confirmed, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. And we see supercell storms that we've never seen on the planet before. These are super typhoons, super cyclones, and where they're hitting winds of 200 miles per hour, steady. And they're gusting the Tacloban, the Haida, Typhoon Haida. I'm not even pronouncing that one right for some reason. But in Tacloban in Asia, what they encountered was also a 20-foot storm surge, but it was actually up to 40 feet high. And that wiped out the coastline. There was 30 million of their palm trees, coconut trees, were turned into projectiles. People and motorcycles, there were 6,000 people killed. These people were actually flying. Motorcycles were flying in the air at the same time. Telephone poles were flying through the air at the same time for great distances. I know one body was found 100 miles away, and that obviously wasn't a storm surge. There was 41 provinces tore apart. Now, that particular typhoon, this super typhoon, if you hold your hand out the window at driving down the highway at normal speed or your community at normal speed, your hand kind of floats, and everybody done it their whole life where they waved their hand in the air as they're driving down, and the hand is like a little snake head, where it goes up and down with the wind. But at 150 miles an hour, if you stuck your hand out that window, you'd probably break your arm right away or within a second or so. At 200 miles an hour, you would probably lose your arm. And so I was watching when this was happening, there was one father had 3 children, and one by one, the children were whipped out of his arms and blown away.
Oh, my God.
And he survived. He didn't want to survive. And I watched a lot of stuff on this originally when it happened and after included. But there was another really stunning interview, and I covered it on my site before, and I played it for everybody, where they had the locals who had grown up there generation after generation after generation as impoverished fishermen, and they lived by the folklore and the tradition. And I'm telling this because that storm was created by the radiation from Japan. The heated ocean. The ocean is heating up because of all the radiation, and life is gone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the story works this way, is that when he was asked, was he going to rebuild, he said, why would I rebuild if we're going to have another storm like this in the future? Who in their right mind would rebuild?
Amen to that, yeah.
And so that is emblematic. Now, there was a documentary at Tacloban on National Geographic, or I think it was, and they were saying it was 240 mile an hour gusts. The strongest winds we've ever seen on land were, say, in mountain passes. And so you get the perfect condition in the mountain pass, and the wind could hit 200 miles an hour in some of these spots just on a gust. And that was extraordinary. And everybody, this was an amazing thing on our planet. But to have a storm that is 300 miles wide, have a storm that took out 41 provinces, leveled it, limbed every tree or tore it completely out of the ground. If that hits America or Canada, then people will get what the significance of these melted reactors are.
Well,
And so,
don't you think this is the most annoying part of I mean, when we say it's the death of the Pacific Ocean, I often think to myself, it's almost the death of really humanity's drive to live because people have just given up. It's not just the Pacific Ocean. Like, they're willing to accept this bullshit lie that it's just, oh, too much poison's in the ocean causing this, or I mean, they're
right.
complete denial. There is no
Well, here's
acceptance
a way to look at it.
that nuclear
Think
causes harm.
think about all the plastic allegedly in the ocean. And I'm not saying allegedly in a bad way. I'm just saying because the numbers are so varying. But think about pollution in the ocean. Think about oil spills in the ocean. And that's a lot, right? Think about pharmaceutical going through your body and using the sewage system and finding its way into the ocean. So there's a stupid amount of pollution. Okay. But none of that pollution has energy. None of that pollution is able to retain its energy. Say, for instance, like radiation will pulse every second, 60 seconds a minute, 1,440 minutes a day for billions of years. And so this energy is heating the ocean. In the ocean, right after Fukushima, it was like a snowstorm right to the ocean floor and then all the way up to the lower and upper troposphere. There was an invisible storm of radiation right around the entire planet. The average person in California was breathing in around 300 to 400 atoms a day. A single atom could cause a cancer in 10, 20, 30 years and usually does show up. But there's, like you say, once again, 1,800 autoimmune deficiencies, illnesses, and diseases will show up before that cancer. But there was so much came out of there. So that industry, the nuclear industry, there's a million corporations just dependent upon it. Then you have all these countries dependent upon it for power. Then you have all the stocks and trading and all this other stuff going on in the background. Now, the majority of the people playing those markets have no concept about radiation, but a lot of them do, of course. But the majority of them don't, and the majority of them would pull their money out of uranium stocks in a heartbeat. Right. You know, uranium have dropped down straight for 5 years. The prices of uranium has steady fall, and there's no end in sight. But if you go look at the big media, they're pushing uranium stocks all the time.
Yes,
they're doing that on purpose to loot everybody, to loot the system before this comes to a hit.
Down. So Dana, you know, I know you need to leave us today at about 8:30. So I want to give you an opportunity. You're expanding your media presence, and I want to ask you to share with us how people can listen to you. I know that you're on the Jeff Renz show. Please tell people how to find you. And I know you're making a documentary. Explain how people can follow your presence in the different venues.
Yeah, thank you, Lonnie. They can find me on YouTube at Beautiful Girl Boy Dana is the YouTube site, one name. And then you can link over also from the nuclearproctologist.org. And you'll see a couple of videos on the page, and that will be linked right directly to my channel is another way to get there. And that I am producing a documentary. I'm just a couple of weeks away from wrapping it up. It's relentless pace that I'm on because the story has to be told. It has to be told accurately and properly, and it has to be told immediately, unfortunately. But I still can't rush it. It has to be told properly. I am producing 1-hour presentations fairly regularly, been under an enormous amount of pressure for the last year. Like you say, once again, I was arrested again 2 nights ago and released again, but I have to go to court in Victoria, which is a long way, you know, a ferry ride and hotels away from here.
You're not arrested for a new violation, though, right?
No, I was arrested for not showing up to my probation officer in 2015. The warrant was issued while I was in court on trial. While I was in court on trial for that whole case. So they didn't wait till the trial was over to see if I was innocent or not. Not that they had a fair trial by any shape or form. I went through 18 lawyers and I still didn't have representation. But this wasn't an attack upon me. This was a way to try to, it's a chilling effect, a self-censoring effect. So a week after you get home, the police show up at your door, 8 o'clock at night, knock on your door, and arrest you is a horrifying thing. It's not if you committed a crime. It's not if you've done something wrong, I'm sure. You expected it, right, in one sense. But if you didn't do nothing wrong, if you've already been a victim and you've already been victimized and you just had less than a week and you can't recover from this because you got gag orders on me, and so I can't even come out and defend myself properly without getting a judge to okay it first. And then a judge is not going to allow me to say the things that I should be saying. And no matter how I say it or how I try to say it, the judge will never be happy with that, I'm sure. Because the trial wasn't a fair trial. I had an enormous, inconceivable, unimaginable defense, and everything I said was disregarded completely, and that I was completely discredited. And even allegations that I didn't do the trip, even allegations that I faked everything, even allegations that I was just stealing money from people, which are like I was lied about and lied to for 3 days straight. That kind of psychological effect is hard to beat off for anybody. I don't know. I don't care who you are. It's a very difficult thing. I got a lot more resilient than most people, I'm sure, because I got a thick skin. I've been at this for over a decade, and I don't do this lightly. I don't want the job, but I understand it that I have this unique ability to do things and get things accomplished, and so I went ahead and done it. And it's the most horrifying, most destroying thing imaginable.
Well, that's what they attempt to do. It's kind of like in the States here, the Congress just passed that law that said people can sue the Saudi government for the 9/11 attacks, right? Let's just see one judge side with the 9/11 victims. Like, really? We know how it works. The money buys everybody's vote. I mean, that's really the issue. And, I applaud you for sticking with it. So let's find out. So you have The Beautiful Girl by Dana. You're regularly on the Jeff Rense Show. And how can people hear you on the Jeff Rense Show?
Jeff Rense Show is Monday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, British Columbia, Canada time. It's for 1 hour, and you can catch the show live at Jeff Rense's website, rense.com. And on the left-hand side, at the top of the page, as you scroll down a little tiny bit, you'll see Radio Show, and you just click on that and open up a player window on your site. You can listen to the live stream when that's happening. And it's usually Yoshi Shimatsu, an ex-editor of the Japanese Times, and Jeff Rense, of course, the Jeff Rense Network, who's been around for like 20 years. And is actually the biggest alternative media source out there that I know about.
Yeah, he is. And I did not know that Yoshi was ex-editor of the Japanese Times. Oh my gosh.
The Japan Times, actually, sorry.
The Japan Times. That's amazing.
He's an investigative journalist, and he has broken some amazing stories in that career with the Japan Times. They went after the mob down there, the Yakuzas and everything else. They really went after the government a number of times in big exposés, and that's a huge media, obviously.
Wow.
Okay, listen, I'm gonna bum rush out of here.
Okay.
And get ready. I got to go in to see a lawyer. We're looking at civil suits. We're looking at an appeal. I'm also going in this morning to start up my company, my movie production company, and I will be selling DVDs on my site, and I will also be selling the documentary from my site. And
well, Dana, this is an idea that you can talk to your attorney about. I don't know if it will help you, but I know I will, and there's probably many of your followers who will sign sworn statements, get them notarized that say, you didn't rip us off, you're not lying to us, you're not cheating us, that kind of thing. If you had some written confirmed statements about the people that you have allegedly harmed, that really, in fact, we value your service.
They were asked to provide information, and they said it's all over the internet, just go look it up. And so that's not evidence in a court under anybody's rules, right? This was a pure slander and a pure kangaroo court. This was a kangaroo court.
Well, look, I'll let you go. And
it was demoralizing too, and it's hurtful that the world didn't come to battle for me, because I think the world should have went to battle, and for some reason I didn't expect them to, but for some reason that hangs heavy on my shoulder. I'm not saying this When I talk about the world, I'm not talking about the people that are aware. I'm talking about the world itself.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what I mean by that. I guess I can't explain it. But the world, there must be somewhere in the world where academia and media can speak freely. There
Huh.
has to be. If not, we have lost the planet. So we lost the planet because that
Yeah.
didn't happen. That's what I'm saying. We didn't see the media looking at both sides of it. We
The
didn't see,
scientist, the real scientist, not one coming to your defense. I get what
but
you're
like
saying.
everybody that knows me came to my defense. Everybody that is understands Fukushima has been looking at it came to my defense, whether they spoke out or not. They did speak out to their friends and said, "This is outrageous." Mr. Durnford went and done the entire coastline, and everybody knows I've done the whole coastline. Like for them that they done that in order to try to for the appeal to disregard everything I'm saying. And this was a star chamber, and it doesn't mean nothing because everybody knows that I've produced endless documentation on this. That the documentary of the whole coastline will tell the whole story, I'm sure. But over the last year, how much stuff have I published about this? Now, over 300 of my videos were taken down with a court order. That included an incredible amount of documentation of the coastline. And that was because I had 24 hours to find a couple of names that I might have talked about. And so I didn't have the time to go through 300 hours of presentation. So I had to pull the whole bloody thing. And just leading up to that, I had 9 computers destroyed in less than a year,
Wow.
including the most expensive one a week before I was arrested. So they've done everything they can. They sabotaged the vehicle and the boat a number of times against me. I've been attacked
Well,
and
you know
smeared
what,
in all the
Gino?
media, but I'm still here, Lonnie. I'm still here with
Yeah.
you.
And you know
Yeah.
what? Love is greater than fear. So look, we'll let you go. I don't want you to be late for your meeting.
Yeah,
So
no worries.
I
We're gonna
really
jump.
appreciate your time. Hopefully you'll be with us again next Friday. That would be really
Next
awesome.
next Friday is good. Yeah, no.
Okay. We'll talk
Take
to you
hugs
soon.
for everybody. Take care, Lonnie. Bye bye.
Bye. That was Dana Durnford. Today is Call-In Friday. The phone number is 718-717-8296. I actually did not attempt to answer phones while Dana was on simply because I knew he had to leave in a very short period of time. So if people want to give us a call, there is actually someone that I'd like to see if I could call. And I'm going to give him a shout out because I think he's listening. And that is Chuck Hindman. Chuck has an idea of something that could actually work, or so they say it actually works. I'm not sure it does. If I can find him in my Skype listing, but Chuck has come up with an idea that is not online, so I will not be able to give him a call. But he has an idea that can actually cleanse the radiation from the system. Like there's a way that we can get mold. According to Chuck, mold and radiation go together. So and that kind of makes sense because we know that mushrooms were used to clean up a lot of the radiation, and it has to do with the phytoremediation. I think it does. So, anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to be interviewing Chuck in the next week or so, having him on, and I hope that I can have Chuck on a lot more often and have him share the information and his ideas on how to get out, because a lot of what I really attempt to do with people is to share that there are solutions. I put out a video last night on my YouTube channel about how I thought that Thomas Ackerman was completely right about art. I had this epiphany that artwork really is going to lead us into really brilliant ideas. And, one of the things that we can do is pursue our dreams and pursue our artwork so that when out of the sparks of us pursuing our dreams and our artwork, I really have this intuitive feeling that we're going to come up with a solution. I mean, I know that we're living on a planet with a time clock ticking away, like the nuclear industry, the technologists have done all they could to put people asleep, to make people feel uncomfortable. And so I just got a message from Chuck that says it's not working. The call-in Friday is not working. So I guess that's I guess that's what it is. That's why we don't have callers, folks. Um, so, anyways, uh, that's what it is. I don't think anybody will be able to call in. So, call in Friday is still call in Friday, but seems like the station's having some kind of a disconnect with my radio show. I have no idea. But I'm going to move on. We have about a half hour left. I do have a bunch of ideas. This idea that there are solutions, one of the things that Guy McPherson talks about all the time is that the science is unequivocal, that we are on an extinction level event. And he projects that probably less than 100, we don't even have 200 years, that, it's all over with. So our point in life now is just to be happy, live our dreams, be here now, not to stress over the anxiety of knowing that the planet is about to collapse. And for me, I'm not willing to just lay down. I mean, in Guy's defense, I don't think that's really his message. But I don't think that that's really it. I think it's really more about facing the fact, like us. We're facing the fact, like the fact that there is a huge methane time bomb about to blow up, off the coast of Russia, So we know that. What they say, the scientists in Russia have discovered there is like 900 or 800 gigatons of methane that's creeping up towards the surface. So that is, in fact, why, they're saying that we know that there's going to be this catastrophe, because if that 900 gigatons actually does burst through the out to the atmosphere, the planet will just have a big gigantic fire and we're going to blow up. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting, but I'm not willing to just give in and say we're all dead. You know what I mean? Like, it's really up to us, folks, to make the change. Gandhi said it best: be the change you want to be. It is really up to us to make these decisions to, I don't know, keep on like Dana Durnford. I think that's why I admire the work that Dana's doing. In the face of this huge, gigantic Goliath, we are still keeping on. I mean, Fukushima is getting exponentially worse. We know about the methane time bomb. The Arctic no longer has ice. In Iceland, we have discovered the United States just buried all of its shit in Iceland, all the nuclear waste there. They just covered it up and figured it's going to live there forever. So that is a ticking time bomb. There's all these and as we said, the million uranium mines in our country. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous, So look, let me see if I can give Chuck a quick call, because Chuck has some ideas that I'd really love to share. I am going to be interviewing him, but I am excited. I'm so excited to have him on the air, because the things that he has to say and the information, he's kind of like a little Dana Durnford. He has all this information and he's being drowned it out. So let me see if I can link him into this, if I can add him to this phone call, because I sure would love to have him on the air. See if that works. How about that? We have about a half hour left. But you know me, I think that we're having issues with our call-in number, which is why nobody can call in. If you've been trying. The producers tried to rehook us up.
It's Chuck.
Hey, Chuck, this is Lonnie Clark. We're on the Age of Fission radio show. I thought I'd try to give you a call since you texted
That'll
me.
work.
You were trying to call in.
It's amazing how the technology keeps telling me it's not available.
Yeah, well, the producers tried to rehook it in 3 times, so I don't know if it's just you, the lucky you, or if it's our lucky show, or what the deal is, but I thought I'd give you a call. For our listeners, this is Chuck Heinemann. I just met Chuck 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was referred to me, in fact, by the producer of the show, and we're going to have a formal interview tomorrow that we're going to be airing very soon. And but I'm excited to get Chuck on the air. So, Chuck, why don't you explain a little bit, because you have had a lot of national exposure. Why don't you explain what it is that you have discovered about how to remediate the radiation?
Well, if everybody was to understand how this planet works, we will know. Everybody would
Yeah,
understand.
isn't that the million-dollar question? You're talking to a non-scientific person here. You know how it works for me? I go to sleep and I wake up and there's the world again.
Yep. When we look at the creation of this planet, from day one, we've had natural radiation, we've had natural uranium, we've had all of these exposures, but there's been one thing in constant that has kept this planet in balance, and that's with the natural organisms, the microbes in our soil. With that being said, along with that, what is in our soil that naturally breaks us down over years? It's the organisms. And when you look at what's going on with the onslaught and the chemical farming and the geoengineering, we've lost the control and natural balance of the natural organisms in our soil. By flooding the areas...
worldwide, isn't it, Chuck?
Excuse me?
That's probably worldwide.
Right. And when we look at what we're doing with the natural organisms, the microbes, there are many microbe producers out here, and a lot of them only have 2, 4, 6, 8 families producing 12, 16, 18, 24 species.
Wow.
I'm very unique in what I'm doing. I've got over 25 naturally beneficial organisms, and we're producing over 125 different species, which is a whole lot more than most. And when we look at what we're doing...
Could you say that again? Could you repeat that?
The natural organisms we run are over 25 different naturally beneficially reoccurring organisms, which are producing 125 species.
Wow.
Which are far beyond the natural realm of most of the formulators. And then you've got to also look at the fact the other balance of the formulators are producing specific, which are GMO. And we don't need any more GMO in our environment than what we already have.
Uh-huh. So you do realize you're talking to a super non-scientific person here, right, Chuck? Like, I had to repeat it. It still didn't sink in. So let's just move on, because I think what you're saying is that you've produced a method that can actually create non-GMO organisms which populate 125 species, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
and
good.
When you look at the big realm of it, like I said, what is in our environment, in our soil, that breaks this down over years, producing the half-lives? Well, when we introduce a heavier concentration of these organisms, we are able to break this down a whole lot quicker.
Uh-huh. So,
in short, what we're trying to do is, like an armed forces floods the front line. That's what we're doing with the microbes. We are flooding the front line attack, and we keep hitting them hard repeatedly, and we can knock this down.
So did you just hear the segment that I was talking about the abandoned uranium mines with Dana Durnford?
No, I'm on the road.
Okay. Well,
nowhere near a computer this morning.
Okay.
And,
well, listen, I was asking about. I asked Dana. I had Dana Durnford on the air, and I've been reading recently about the abandoned uranium mines and the uranium tailings all throughout the Midwest and the Southwest of the United States.
It's not just uranium mines. You got to remember, we've got uranium deposits that are just popping up naturally all over the country. I talked to a water specialist right here in Kansas, and they have found natural uranium popping up right here in Kansas.
What do you mean natural uranium just popping up? That sounds
uranium. It's in short, it's kind of like a mineral deposit. uranium sources are showing up in our soil just right here in Kansas.
Well, you know what I think that's from? I think it's from uranium poisoning. I mean, we have more than, at least 200,000. Dana says it's 1 million abandoned uranium mines in the United States.
Oh, probably very close to that.
And so,
And
this is, to me, when I hear scientists saying, oh, we have these things popping up, to me, that sounds like they're not thinking. A lot of these scientists are trained not to think. They just go, oh, here's uranium, it's popping up. No, it's probably leaking from a uranium mine that's been abandoned 100 miles away or something. This is the insanity of our scientific community. We really have an insane scientific community. They are willing to swallow the pill.
When you look at the insanity, you've got all the different mines and whatnot up there in Colorado. And, we all know what the EPA did up there in Colorado here last year. And that went to the west. But we've got a North Platte River up there in Nebraska that borders just north of the Kansas border. And they're finding cyanide in the river up here just north of us from the mines up there in Colorado.
Now, with these organisms that you have, how would we work? How would we use them to remediate our soil and bring our earth back to its balance? Is that a possibility?
Everything I use is in liquid form. It is just a simple spray application.
And it brings back the earth. Because this is my thing. I've been reading about this methane time bomb that we've got going on. According to the scientists in Russia, there's over 800 gigatons of methane that is finding its way up through the atmosphere, through the Earth's crust. And when it does, it's going to create a bubble, and the Earth will have a big fire, and bye-bye Earth. But we've got probably 500 or 600 years left of that, right? So they're estimating 500 to 600 years, maybe 1,000 years before that actually happens. Could be sooner. They're freaked out because they can't really tell. But the question is for me, in between that, we can see it coming. On top of the methane time bomb, we have polluted our planet to such a grotesque amount that my focus is to really help remediate it for the sake of our grandchildren, for whatever limited time our planet has on this universe. Our children do not deserve to be living a twisted, painful life caused by nuclear pollution. And I think that's what we have given them. That's the legacy of this modern age, is a twisted humanity. So I don't know, and how does this work? If you say that this process works, how would it work, Chuck?
When we got an area, okay, I'm going to use Hanford, for instance. That's in your backyard.
Please do, because I live near there.
If we were to go in there and drill a grid every 25 yards and drop a perforated line straight up and down, say 30 foot down, that way we can get microbes to 30 foot down, and we put a grid in all the way around. We can pump the microbes straight down into the soil, and then we can also do a spray application over the top of it. Let gravity run its course. We keep doing this, and we will get in front of the storm called Hanford.
For how long would you have to keep doing it? And when would you start seeing results?
Well, first off, you got to remember that we've got years upon years of leakage. And that soil is so heavily toxic that we will have to keep putting them in there, because what these microorganisms are going to do is they're going to take out X amount of toxins before they're so toxic that they die off.
Right.
Then we reapply. We got to keep hitting them just like a front line of the war. We have to keep hitting that front line to where we can get that toxicity down to where the microbes will sustain and start taking it back.
Well,
little
look,
by
I think
little,
in Hanford it would have to be
that.
continuous. I think in Hanford it would have to be continuous because they built, 40 miles of trenches and just poured the nuclear pollution in these open trenches. So it's now leaking into the groundwater that's affecting the groundwater of Seattle and Portland.
And that's why if we go ahead and start drilling these perforated lines, putting these lines down 30 foot, 40 foot, and start pumping the microbes down in, we can get to a deeper depth a lot quicker than just gravity on top.
So does the government know about this and they're just not acting on it, or what's that story?
Yeah, they know.
They know. They just don't want to do anything because then what? People would be freaked out, or they just want to kill off all of us? Like, what's the option? Like,
Bottom line is everybody says follow the money. You know, when you look at following the money, nature is not on the market exchange. They're not going to make no money off of it.
wow.
There is no way to put natural products on the market.
You know, Thomas Ackerman told me I need to swallow some selfish pills. I guess I do, because I cannot comprehend selling out the entire planet for even a gazillion trillion dollars. You know what I mean? Like, that is just an impossibility for me. And yet, it sounds like that is really what it's all. I think what it is maybe just destitution, is they just feel like it's so desperately bad that they might as well just dig in, make as much money as they possibly can before everybody gets killed. I mean, I can't comprehend it.
It's called greed.
Yeah, but how couldn't they make a lot of money? Like with your product, couldn't they also make a lot of money? Because there's so much pollution. And in fact, even if they wanted to continue using these polluters, they could use a product like yours, the phytoremediation, all these other ideas. Those are all current industries that could be billion-dollar industries. Correct?
Exactly. But here's the back door of this. When you look at what's going on in the agriculture, in the farming world, and you look at what's going on with all of the chemical use and having to add more chemical here to do this and do that, we start onslaughting a large territory with the microbes, removing that chemical footprint of the chemical, we will be fertile to where we can grow food again without all of the chemicals.
So bye-bye Monsanto.
Exactly.
Which is why it's not going to happen. Because Monsanto, whoever runs Monsanto, those people could care less about human life. It's obvious. We really are assets on a balance sheet to them.
Here's the other side of that. Kansas City Star out of Kansas City did an interview with Monsanto here a couple of years back. And the title is Fungus in Our Agriculture. And that's what they're talking about. Monsanto is trying to redevelop and get into microbes. But the bad part about that is, and like I said, for a natural product to be on the exchange, they have to genetically engineer it for purpose of the market exchange.
They have to say that again. I mean, you're talking about stuff. I know it sounds simple words, but the concept is difficult for me to grasp. Say that again.
In order for Monsanto to make money in the microbes, they have to have a patent. You cannot patent nature. Therefore, it all has to be genetically modified.
Oh, which is exactly like the AMA. Like, they refuse to allow doctors to say prescribe herbs for health. And like motherwort is really a good thing for your heart, right? But anybody could grow motherwort and make your own tincture, right? So the doctors are not allowed to give you a prescription for motherwort. You have to go buy a prescription that each pill costs $150 to keep your ticker going.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's all about the money. It is called greed.
Wow. Well, it's all about capitalism, isn't it? Like the system of capitalism. I mean, it's really a stunning admission of hatred, really. I mean, people wonder why we have all this hate in our country. At the core of it, it sounds like the financial industry really is an industry based on hate. That's really it.
So,
Wow.
well, like I said, we'll cover a whole lot more about this in another program.
Yeah. Well, I am going to be interviewing Chuck. Chuck and I are going to pre-record an interview, folks. We just got a message in from Thomas Ackerman. Our phone number, our link for our phone number. Chuck tried to call in, did not work. Thomas Ackerman just attempted to call in, it did not work. So there is something going on. Maybe the old NSA has decided that, we have enough people here, or maybe it's just a freaking computer glitch. Who knows why? But people cannot call in, so I guess it's not call-in Friday. But well, look, Chuck, I really appreciate you explaining all this stuff, because really, people are very upset. They feel as if there's really just no answers as to what we can do for this radiation and all the pollution on the earth. Like, we just have to throw up our hands and just wait for death to arrive. And I think that that's a false assumption. Now, we cannot stop the methane time bomb, the 800,000 gigatons of methane that's erupting from the inner core of our Earth, but that doesn't mean that we can't find a way to live in the next 500 or 600 years to allow our children to not live tortured lives. Because that's essentially what we have handed our children, a future of torture, essentially. And I'm personally not interested in that.
Well, that's kind of why I picked up this fight 5 years ago, over 5 years ago, and with the nuclear catastrophe of Fukushima, Japan, and I did this same fight many years in a row with different obstacles we've all been facing, and the answers are there if you know how the planet works.
Well, isn't that it? Knowing how the planet works. I really am the perfect post-ignorant person, because really, I basically grew up with this sense of bravado about being an American, feeling like we as Americans had like a special idea about integrity and honor, and I really honestly never in a million years dreamt that our government would intentionally lie to us and mislead us about the uranium poisoning, the nuclear poisoning, poisoning our water, poisoning our air, like just using us as if we're just like marshmallows. They just poke us with a poker, stick us in the fire, and see how long it takes us to turn brown. It's a stunning come to Jesus moment for me, to be honest. And this is what keeps me in the fight, frankly. Lately I've been feeling like, why am I doing this? Like, can't I just ignore this and focus on my school and do my work? And the reality is I cannot not do this. I must share this truth with people in every way that I can, because if humanity has a half a chance, it's by getting the information out that there is hope, that there is some way that maybe we could turn it around. I don't know.
Well,
maybe that's false.
There is, the contracts in the past for cleaning up, the different problems. We're just going to tag it as problems. You've got a lot of mediation going on out there. That many different indices are doing. And this is in part how they're doing it. It's so simple. It's hard for people to understand how simple it is for you to put microbes down. It's just like in a previous show that I've done, talking about Monsanto and all of the chemical use. We got DuPont, we got Dow, we've got Monsanto, we've got all of these chemical companies that are breaking into the agricultural world. And I put out an open challenge about 2 years ago, I believe it was, to anybody involved in the CEO world of these chemical companies. I said, here's what my open challenge is. If anybody wants to strip down to your skivvies and get in a 300-gallon bath of your best of whatever, I'll do the same thing with my natural organisms. And we'll see who sits there the longest. Unfortunately, nobody's ever taken me up on that challenge.
Well, look, I do know that microbes work. There's a product I put on my own garden that I was trained to put on my garden by, here in Eugene, there was a woman who started what she called victory gardens, like they did in World War II, right? And she taught me to put microbes on the land, and it basically remediates the land to an organic farm after 3 years. If you don't put any more chemicals on it, and you just put this, it's called a microbial inoculant that I put on. And you just use 2 tablespoons of this stuff, and you put it in water and molasses. You know, you use non-chlorinated water. You fill the tank up with your water, let it sit for 24 hours to let the chlorine dissipate. You add a couple of tablespoons of this microbial inoculant along with, and I buy this brand called Terraganex. I don't know if you know it, but that's what she recommended, and I've always used it. But basically, you add it with a quarter cup of molasses. The molasses activates the microbes, and you pour it on your plants, and whammo, man, you get huge. Your production quadruples. It's just amazing.
Right. And that's just it. With the agricultural world, you know, with the chemicals and everything, they've killed the soil, the natural life in the soil. So now we've got all these chemicals on top of chemicals just to grow food when we don't need to.
Right. And what the microbes do is they basically eat up the chemicals so that in a few years, if you stop with the chemicals, you have good organic soil again. I mean, we can get back to living a good life. We can get back to a Now, whether we can stop the 800 gigatons of methane from escaping from the center of the earth, I'm not so sure about that. We have sinkholes all over the place now. But what we can do is remediate it from the toxins and poisons that the technologists are killing us with.
Exactly. Like I said, there's many ways of attacking it, and we can do it naturally. That's the best part. And when you look at natural microbes, you can do any Google search you want to. Google search probiotics. What is the first word in probiotics? Microbes. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's really important for us. Well, look, Chuck, we have about a minute left. While you're on the air, why don't you tell people how to find you?
Okay, y'all have access to Facebook. You can go find me on Facebook with Mid-America Land Restoration. All sorts of information there on that page, plus a message button. You can chat with me on Facebook, or you can go to the main website at midamericalandrestore.com. There's a direct email button on the contact page. When you're on that contact page, you'll find all the phone numbers to get a hold of me.
That's awesome, Chuck. Well, look, thank you so much. I'm glad that I was able to get in touch with you, and thank you for texting me and telling me that the call-in number wasn't working. Thomas Ackerman, there must be something going on with it, but I'm really grateful that we were able to connect and share this information with our listeners. So, everyone, please put your courage feet on. Please take action. Please go to Chuck's page. Find him at his website. Plant your own gardens. Learn how to grow your own food. Take action. Take heart. And put your courage feet on. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.